This is Chuck Saunders with Saunders Archery. Today I'm going to tell you how not to shoot a wrist rocket. There are a lot of things that you can do wrong. Some of them come really pretty naturally and you have to fight those tendencies. Other ones are a little bit more subtle, and it's just important to be able to point these things out. I'd like to start with the first thing that you do wrong, which is start shooting without safety goggles. Safety goggles are a key ingredient. You can do any type that are basically approved for ballistic use. They range from very simple slip-on types to the type that are held on with retainer bands. What I'll start with is just how to hold the slingshot improperly. If you're gripping it really tight and you're gorilla gripping it, what can happen is that you're using the force of your wrist to try to stabilize a wrist brace slingshot. What happens in that situation is that you could be forcing so much energy that when you release the shot and you fire, the brace slips off the arm and can get into the line of the path of the ammo. This can be a dangerous situation. So the first thing is that you're holding it firm enough so it doesn't slip out of your hand, but you're not gripping it so tight that you're using the strength of your wrist to hold the slingshot. You want the wrist brace to do most of the work and let that energy flow onto the wrist. You can see I can have a completely open hand, and the slingshot does not slip out of my hand as long as my wrist is locked. If I have a loose wrist, then it would be a problem. Then you could have this happen. So you want to have a locked wrist, but you can have an open hand or just a loosely open hand. And you can tell when it's comfortable and when it feels like it's not going to slip out of your hand. Your mind will tell you this is a safe way to shoot. The second issue is generally the way people hold ammo. I'm going to only take one out. I usually shoot with 5 or 6 in my hand. There's no problem in doing that, but when I'm demonstrating, it's a little bit more difficult. And that is that people have a tendency of gripping down with a knuckle down force that is pressing so hard that there's a tendency to pop the ammo right out of the pouch. You don't want to do that. You want much more of a flat type of approach where the index finger is at a right angle and your thumb is gently over it, and you're pulling back like this, and then you're just releasing so that the thumb takes the pressure off and the ammo slips out of your hand like that. First thing that you could be doing wrong would be holding the pouch incorrectly, putting too much pressure on the pouch, not centering the pouch in between the two knuckles and two joints of the index finger, and also not centering the thumb over the pouch by putting it to one side or the other side that can extract the ammo or push the ammo out from the pouch itself. Discussing the next two major factors are your posture and your stance. Posture is you want to be erect, you don't want to be slouched, you want to have just basic, good, fundamental posture. One of the most commonly observed tendencies for people is to shoot with them shooting the wrist rocket facing straight in front of them, like this. They will take it and they'll kind of go like that, thinking this is the way that they're going to hold it. The reality is that you're using an archer stance. The stance is going to be what is called an archer stance. I said how most people have a tendency of shooting this way. In the archer stance, you're gonna draw a line through your 2 feet with the foot closest to the target slightly back. That's called an open stance. The one thing that I don't want to do is I don't want to shoot without the safety glasses, no matter how much I'm trying to show you what not to do. This is something that's so important because so many things can go wrong. You don't know if there's going to be a ricochet. If you're shooting glass ammo, you don't know if you're going to hit something hard. You could damage it. You could have wild shots. There are just a whole lot of things that could go wrong. The one thing that you don't want to go wrong is to lose an eye. So please always wear safety glasses. So when we get to the stance, we're going to avoid shooting like this. I'm going to aim at that, but I'm not going to do it. That's what people want to do. You want your arm out to the side. You tilt your head. You lock your wrist. You leave your hand loosely open, but comfortably so they can tell it's not going to slip out. You draw an anchor. Take the pressure off your thumb until it slips through. And you'll see that your hand didn't fly back. It didn't open up. It just simply almost surprises you when the pouch slips out of the hand. So equally important is unlocking the wrist that pulls the pouch. By keeping the wrist action free and the motion of the wrist unlocked, it helps align the hand and the wrist to the draw of the power bands. And by doing that, you keep a true plane for the pouch to be released. If you lock your wrist and you hold the pouch in such a way that the pouch is facing upward, it's going to flip over the fingers when you release, and this can cause a wild shot. This didn't happen this time, but it does happen quite often that the bands will be tangled. Most shooters are so anxious to get another shot off that they will shoot it with tangled bands. It only takes a second to untangle it, to get it back to the point where you're ready for your next shot. Please take that extra effort to do so. Another tendency is that people will put their feet together, which doesn't give them a stable platform to be able to shoot. And this is true of almost all shooting sports. You really want a stable platform. So you'll have a tendency of putting your feet together, and you might have your body twisted like this, and you will have a tendency to do things like maybe look like this as opposed to like this, which is in relationship to which eye is dominant. So that gets us to the other factor that we talked about before, is the dominant eye. If you don't know which eye is dominant, take two hands, cup them together, focus on an object and bring them over your eye. The eye that you bring them over will be your dominant eye. That's the same side as the hand that holds the pouch. If you're ignoring that and you have a left dominant eye, but you have a tendency, because you might be right-handed, of holding it this way, what you'll do is you'll find yourself twisting your head like this to try to see out of the left eye while you really should be shooting out of the right eye. So it's important to determine that dominant eye if you're really going to do a good job at shooting a wrist rocket. That's essentially it. Important thing, as always, is to shoot safe, honorably, and well. This is Chuck Saunders with Saunders Archery, wishing you good shooting.